Hi everyone. Just want to touch base. It's been rather an exciting week, and I only just heard a couple hours ago about the Biden win. I was on a hike and didn't have my phone on me, but wow, what a week! I will say that it's like I actually voted on election day, and I'm not a huge fan of Biden, but I really hate Trump. And honestly, I would have rather have had someone like Bernie as the Democratic contender than Biden. I just thought I wasn't overly impressed with Biden, but he's better than Trump. And I hate that about American politics. It's like this evil or that, and I hope he does a good job, but getting Trump out of the office is just the most important. I mean, this man should never have. I call him a man. He's a man child. Should never have been given this permission to enter the White House. I mean, it's ridiculous. A game show host running the country. And he likes democracy when it benefits him. So he doesn't like the counting of the ballots if it doesn't work in his favor. I mean, he's just disgusting. And you can't have somebody like him who doesn't understand leadership or how to be a leader running the country. I mean, had Trump taken the coronavirus seriously and enforced masks and listened to the CDC rather than mock them and, taken the necessary precautions, I think he would have, defeated Biden in a walk, but he didn't. Trump, had the opportunity to show himself as a leader and he couldn't do it because he's not a leader. He's a bully. And that's some good news. I mean, I hope some good things happen. It's just been really a rotten year for a lot of people. And, I'm just tried to get through it as much as I can. So, not to talk about politics. I don't like to talk too much about politics on my channel or anything like that. But Dolce, that's my cat right now. I was not a Trump supporter, so rest assured. But I recently just finished my novella on Joan of Arc, and Dolce, stop. And it's weird because I was just going to mention a little bit about when I finish a project, and it's not a long book at all, but it's a highly poeticized kind of prose style that took me a long time to write. And every time I finish a project, whatever it is, it's a satisfactory sense of completion in one sense, but it's also there's a sadness that comes with it. Enneagram 4, I guess. I'm always looking to what's missing, and I'm going to miss writing about her. And so, I spent the past, I think it was I started the novella in March and I finished in October, and that's a long time for me. I mean, I was working full time. It was the coronavirus was taking hold, and I didn't have off. I had to still work, and it was a lot of work I had to do. And it's not a heavy word count that I created, but it's a different kind of style or form that I've done before. So I spent the last, number of months thinking about this subject matter, and now to say goodbye to it, I mean, I sent it off to some readers, some friends, but other than some tweaks, there's Dolce. Other than some tweaks, I mean, the work is done, and I've experienced this every time. It's sort of like, I don't know. It's like there's a high, I think, in a moment of finishing it, but then I sort of miss it. It's like a postpartum depression, I guess, sort of after you give birth. So that's sort of what I'm feeling. It's just a sadness that I'm going to miss writing about her. And this is a person who lived and died. She died almost 600 years ago. And some of the themes that I address in it, the idea of isolation. She spent so much of her time in isolation once she was captured. I mean, coronavirus is ongoing. Before, that happened, there was the Black Plague, in Europe that would have affected at least, some of her family members, or at least some generations before. And also, what is it like to really believe that you're right? To have, as she's claimed, voices of God were speaking to her, and she led the French army during the 100 Years' War. And what does that mean for someone who knows and believes they're right to not be believed? That she had all these factors working against her. She was this illiterate peasant girl from this small town in France, and why should anyone believe that she'd be the one chosen by God to lead the army? Well, that's just how it worked out. And whether or not you believe, it's not, my approach is not one of religion, and it's also not one in history. Even though I base it on her, I take some artistic liberty because none of us were there. A lot of what we hear about from her through history is hearsay, and no one even knows what she looked like. So she's sort of become this mythological symbol, or this figure. And so I took some liberty in expressing my interpretation. So a lot of myself, I felt, went into her. And Joan of Arc is a great example of a type 1. And me being a 4, I felt like myself kind of integrating into these sort of sense of justice and purpose and living for something higher, I guess. So I take an artistic approach, and I don't want people who, whether you are religious or not, to be deterred or to have too many expectations, because it's still a work of literature. It's art. Art is my primary focus and objective, not to convince anybody. And but I do take it from the approach that she's in the right position. She is sort of the underdog in that sense. But so I finished that. Would you like to read it? You could just email me. I can send it to you. But I'm sending it off to some readers, get some feedback, and then eventually, I got to write an introduction. And, once I get some time, I'll probably release it online. Because, honestly, it's a subject matter that I had to do handle in a short approach, I think, because had it been some long book, I think people would be nodding off. They're like, oh God. I had one friend who said, when did she even live? Most people don't even know. They just sort of see the statues, and it's kind of like, you don't really think of this as was once a human who once lived and walked this earth. And I find that rather interesting. And I will say in my novella, you don't really get a sense of who Joan is. And I think that's probably realistic because we don't really know who she was. I mean, there's really no way to know. No one knew her, and that no one, anyone who did know her is long dead, and these are all, any accounts you hear are just hearsay. So, anyway, those are just some thoughts. So, some good political news. Like I said, not a fan of Biden, but really don't like Trump. God, I can't stand this guy. I mean, I just think he's a terrible example. And unfortunately, I think he set the precedent for future politicians to behave in this manner, this obnoxious, kind of abrasive manner that he just gets away with. He just gets away with it. Even worse than Trump, Trump wouldn't be anything were it not for his supporters who will not see anything wrong with him. I voted for Obama, but he's far from perfect. It's just, putting him on as a cult figure, I don't know, it's terrible, terrible. Anyway, don't want to talk about that too much, so I'll have another video. Those are some thoughts. So, That's all I got for right now. I gotta think for a little bit before I can do another video. Because got some Enneagram ideas, but still have to process. So, thank you for listening.